Violence in Britain that is only getting worse.
Indeed, for the first time since the rioting and looting started over the weekend, it has spread outside London to other major British cities.
Britain is facing a volatile mix right now. 4 riots, 11 major protests, 2 police forces stretched close to breaking point, public trust eroding, and disorder linked to illegal migration flaring across city centres. And the timing could scarcely be worse, because this week the country woke to a rumour that goes to the heart of national stability. In political circles, and increasingly beyond them, people are asking whether Prime Minister Keir Starmer is physically well enough to do the job. The talk intensified after claims of a leaked medical briefing from someone described as one of his personal physicians. According to those claims, Starmer has been advised to limit public appearances, avoid prolonged stress, and may soon need an extended recovery period after what are being described as episodes of acute exhaustion. Now, Downing Street has not publicly confirmed any such document, but what has fueled the speculation is what people believe they are seeing with their own eyes: a prime minister who appears paler, slower, and unfocused. A leader reported to be missing briefings, disappearing for days at a time, and delivering speeches that look as though they were put in his hands moments before he stepped out. His team points to overwork, insiders suggest something more serious, and the public is left with a blunt, unavoidable question. If Keir Starmer is struggling to hold himself together, how can he hold the country together? Because while Westminster trades in messaging, the streets have been trading in unrest. The warning signs emerged before sunrise, and by late morning, London, Manchester, and Birmingham were already reporting escalating disorder. Footage from Oxford Street showed crowds surging past overwhelmed officers. In Manchester, mounted police were forced to withdraw after projectiles were thrown. In Birmingham, a transport hub was shut down entirely after staff could no longer guarantee basic safety. This was not a single protest with a single grievance. It was not one group, one trigger, one isolated flashpoint. It was a pattern, one Britain has seen repeatedly this year. People saying they've been ignored, communities insisting that nothing works, police radios flooded with calls they simply cannot answer fast enough. And as anxiety turned into anger, one question dominated social media, live chats, and the commentary across major outlets: where is the Prime Minister? Because as the streets erupted, Keir Starmer was nowhere to be seen. The curtains at Downing Street stayed shut. There was no emergency press briefing, no statement to the nation, no visible presence that suggested the government was gripping the situation. Instead, the country heard from a junior minister reading a pre-written script, one that didn't appear updated to reflect the reality unfolding in real time. It was the language of community dialogues and sustained outreach, while the public watched scenes of chaos and officers falling back under pressure. As the country demanded leadership, Westminster offered pamphlets. And the longer Starmer remained absent, the more politically damaging the silence became. He did not visit a command center. He did not speak directly to the public. He did not address the nation. For hours, Britain appeared to run on autopilot. Then came the moment that shifted concern into something sharper, when Starmer finally appeared in a short, carefully edited clip released by his team. He looked diminished. Not merely tired, not simply stressed. There was a visible lack of presence, a kind of distance behind the eyes that people associate with exhaustion beyond the normal strain of office. He spoke slowly, as though searching for words. He blinked repeatedly. He rubbed his temples between sentences. And his voice, usually measured and controlled, cracked on a basic phrase about maintaining order. This was not the Starmer who campaigned on discipline and stamina. This looked like a man forcing himself through a performance his body may no longer be able to sustain. And according to accounts now circulating from inside government, he had been advised not to appear at all. But he insisted because he needed to look in charge. He needed the footage. Yet the footage achieved the opposite. It deepened the unease. It amplified the questions, and it gave new oxygen to rumors that have been circulating for weeks, that what's driving decision-making inside Downing Street may not be politics alone, but the limits of the Prime Minister's health. The riots were jarring, the protests disruptive, But the real moment of national unease didn't come from the chaos on the streets. It came when millions of Britons turned on their televisions and quietly asked a question that now sits at the heart of the country's political psyche. Is the man leading this country still fit to lead? Leadership, after all, isn't tested during calm. It's measured in moments of pressure, of national instability. And on the day Britain needed a clear voice and a steady hand, Prime Minister Keir Starmer was either nowhere to be seen or visibly unwell. Inside Downing Street, the shift has been stark. What was once tension has hardened into quiet panic. Ministers deflect direct questions. Senior advisors hold strategic meetings, notably without the Prime Minister present. Civil service corridors, once tight-lipped, are now echoing with whispers that grow louder each time Starmer vanishes from public view.
This week, those whispers took on a far more serious tone. Leaked documents, not public statements, not press releases, but internal medical briefings are reportedly circulating. One, allegedly from a senior member of Starmer's private medical team, paints a deeply concerning picture. It refers to episodes of acute fatigue, neurological interruptions, and explicit recommendations to avoid prolonged public engagements. Most troubling of all, it suggests a recovery window of several weeks, right in the middle of one of the most turbulent periods Britain has seen in over a decade. One line in particular has raised alarm across Whitehall. Operational duties may require delegation without public disclosure. In plain terms, this implies there may be days when Britain is being run by officials the public didn't elect because the person they did elect may not be physically capable of doing the job.
And this isn't just theory. Aides have begun speaking off record. They say the Prime Minister now struggles in briefings. He's forgetful. He loses the thread of timelines. He repeats information already covered. He relies more on memorized scripts than on conviction. One advisor put it bluntly. He looks like a man carrying a weight his body can't handle. Another was less diplomatic. Some days, it's not him making the decisions, and we don't know who is. The implications are enormous. All of this is happening against a backdrop of mounting national unrest, the highest level of civil tension in over 10 years. Police unions warn of exhaustion. Local councils say they're approaching operational collapse. Communities report feeling abandoned. Businesses are withdrawing staff from inner-city zones due to safety concerns. And now, inside government, the central question has shifted. It's no longer, is the Prime Minister tired, but is he still capable of governing? If critical health briefings are being hidden, if key decisions are being made without him, if schedules are being quietly rearranged to shield him from scrutiny, then we must ask, what happens when the next crisis hits? The next riot? The next economic shock? The next international emergency?
Who stands before the nation? Who signs the orders? Who answers the questions the country demands answers to? Make no mistake, a government can survive bad policies, it can endure unpopular decisions, but it cannot function in a vacuum of leadership. And that's exactly what Britain is now facing. A prime minister who appears physically diminished, strategically absent, and increasingly protected from public scrutiny by a team more focused on managing appearances than on leading a nation through crisis. This is not a political scandal. This is a structural vacuum, one forming at the very top of the British state, at a moment when the country can least afford it.
Behind closed doors in Whitehall, a new and deeply troubling picture is emerging. In recent weeks, several high-level government meetings, including national security briefings, police strategy sessions, and emergency response updates, have either been postponed without explanation, led by deputies, or attended by the Prime Minister in near silence. Senior officials describe a pattern of behavior that suggests not just fatigue, but a collapse in leadership presence. At one such meeting, witnesses say the Prime Minister sat through the discussion disengaged, not contributing, not responding, simply present. Another civil servant noted moments where he appeared unaware of decisions he'd reportedly approved just days earlier. This is no longer a question of stamina. It's a fundamental concern over whether the machinery of government is operating with its elected leader at the helm. In the vacuum left behind, power is shifting, quietly, unofficially, and with no public acknowledgement.
Sources inside Whitehall now confirm that at least 3 internal groups are actively stepping in to fill the space where leadership is absent. The first, within the Home Office, believes it must assume control over public safety, law enforcement, and border strategy. "We can't wait for him to catch up," one advisor reportedly said. The second group, based in the Treasury, is growing increasingly assertive, particularly as economic instability deepens. They argue decisions must be made swiftly to stabilize markets, regardless of whether the Prime Minister is actively involved. The third group is far more political, senior cabinet ministers reportedly holding late-night calls to prepare for a scenario no one dares say aloud. There's no mention of resignation, but the contingency planning has already begun. What's more alarming is that these groups are not working together. They're competing. Each assumes responsibility for national direction. Each is positioning itself to take charge in a time of crisis. And all of this is happening while the public remains completely unaware. There's no transparency, no formal announcement, no clarity about who is making key decisions at the highest level. This is not leadership, it's survival, and it's unfolding at a time when the country is already under intense pressure. Police chiefs are demanding emergency reinforcements. Local authorities warn of systemic failure. City centers are becoming flashpoints. And confidence, both economic and institutional, is eroding fast.
All of this leads to one unavoidable question: who is actually governing the country? Because if the Prime Minister is too unwell to lead, the public deserves honesty. If key responsibilities have been delegated, it must be declared. If factions within government are quietly assuming control, that demands scrutiny. Instead, what the nation gets is silence. No firm leadership, no public direction. Just a rotating cast of spokespeople and a Prime Minister whose rare appearances increasingly resemble attempts at image control rather than governance. One veteran insider put it in stark terms: "This is the most unstable period in British leadership in decades, and the public hasn't been told even half the story." It's a chilling reality, because when power is unclaimed, it doesn't stay vacant. Someone fills it. And when the public doesn't know who that someone is, democratic accountability begins to collapse. The government continues to present a facade of stability, but behind the scenes, decision-making is being shuffled, redirected, and, in some cases, improvised. The nation watches crisis after crisis unfold, unsure who is ultimately responsible. Whether the Prime Minister returns to full strength remains unknown. Whether this is a temporary struggle or a long-term shift, no one inside government is willing to say. But one thing remains undeniable: a country cannot function when its leadership is undefined. The silence is no longer neutral, it's dangerous. So now the question must be asked, not in whispers but directly. Do you trust this government to lead in a time of crisis? Or are we already living in a political vacuum?